One of the first triumphs of the morning. Hi, I'm Karen Fisk. I'm the Executive Director here at the Stowe Center. I'm really pleased to welcome you here. Our first speech today is by Tammy Denease. And Tammy Denease is an accomplished performing artist, storyteller, actor, and playwright who specializes in bringing to life very important yet hidden women in history. Among her favorites are Bessie Coleman, who in 1921 became the first American woman and Black woman to obtain an international pilot's license, first woman from America to do that. She also loves to portray Elizabeth Keckley, who was formerly an enslaved woman who worked in Lincoln's White House, Margot, who was one of the Amistad captives, and Elizabeth Mumbet Freeman, who sued for her own freedom in 1781, basing her argument on her right to be free on the Constitution of Massachusetts, which, by the way, got its ideas from the Declaration of Independence, which we are talking about today all day. Tammy performs at historic sites, libraries, schools, theaters, and corporate events, and when she is not bringing historical figures to life, she vividly tells folk tales where she takes the audience into a world in which animals set the scene for life lessons. So Tammy, please come on up here.
Hello everybody, thank you so very much for being here and supporting the program. Today we are going to talk about Black pamphleteers. Who knows what a pamphleteer is? Okay, well, you don't count, ma'am. Well, great. I'm going to tell you, as I do my speech, hopefully it will come to mind as to what a Black pamphleteer was and is today. We're going to start with Miss Phyllis Wheatley and Prince Hall. They were among the most influential Black pamphleteers of the 18th century. Now, you may be familiar with some of Wheatley's work, particularly her poem on being brought from Africa to America, one of her most widely studied pieces. Now, though brief, the poem is powerful. Wheatley reflects on her forced journey from Africa into bondage in America while addressing themes of race, Christianity, and salvation. At a time when racist beliefs were widespread, she challenged her readers to recognize that Black people were equally capable of spiritual grace, intellect, and redemption. Prince Hall, while not a poet, was an equally important writer, speaker, abolitionist, and community leader. In his 1797 speech, Charge delivered to the African Lodge, he condemned slavery and racial injustice. Hall compared the suffering of enslaved Africans to that of the biblical Israelites and exposed the contradiction of a nation that was demanding liberty, yet while denying freedom to a group, Black people. Now together, Wheatley and Hall represent a tradition of Black writers using words as weapons against injustice. That tradition is also reflected in the story of Belinda the African. You see, Belinda was a contemporary of Prince Hall and Phyllis Wheatley. Now, she was an African woman that was kidnapped from her homeland near the Volta River at the age of 11. She spent 60 years in bondage before finally obtaining her freedom. Now, her enslaver, Isaac Royal Isaac, he was a loyalist and a Tory. I'm sorry. Together, Wheatley and Hall represent a tradition of Black writers using words as weapons against injustice. That tradition is also reflected in the story of Belinda, an African woman who was kidnapped from her homeland near the Volta River at the age of 11. She spent 60 years in bondage before finally obtaining her freedom. Now, she was a contemporary of Prince Hall and Phyllis. Now, she could not read nor could she write, but she was one of the most intelligent people that was in her community. And although she was 11 years of age when she was taken, she never forgot her culture. She never forgot who she was. So much so that she was named Belinda Sutton, royal, and then married Mr. Sutton, but she was known in the community as Belinda the African. Now, her enslaver, a loyalist during the American Revolution, fled to Nova Scotia when the war ended. But before leaving, he arranged for Belinda's freedom, yet freedom did not guarantee justice. Belinda had to petition the Massachusetts legislature for compensation for decades of unpaid labor. When he gave her that paper giving her her freedom, he also made sure that she was supposed to be paid. But this newfound government said no, she was looking for welfare. So, like I said, she was denied an education during her slavery. She relied on others to help her record her words. And today, her petition remains one of the earliest and most powerful arguments for reparations in American history. She got Prince Hall and Phyllis Wheatley to write her words. And through her words, we hear not only a demand for compensation, but a demand for recognition of stolen labor, stolen time, and stolen humanity. This brings us to a question that still echoes through American history. What to the American slave is the 4th of July? Frederick Douglass asked this question in 1852, and more than 170 years later, it continues to challenge us. Douglass delivered this speech during a turbulent period, for you see, just 2 years earlier, the Fugitive Slave Act had strengthened the power of enslavers to hunt down freedom seekers and punish those who helped them. At the same time, Harriet Beecher Stowe's Uncle Tom's Cabin was helping to awaken many Americans to the realities of slavery. Douglass became one of the nation's greatest orators, but his success was not achieved alone. Behind him, or I like to say beside him, stood his wife, Anna Murray Douglass. She was born free in Maryland. Anna worked as a domestic laborer and used her earnings to help Frederick to freedom. She provided the clothing, resources, and financial support necessary for his journey to freedom. After their marriage, she continued her activism by sheltering freedom seekers and supporting the abolitionist movement. Although she could neither read nor write, Anna Murray Douglass helped make freedom possible for countless others. Her story reminds us that not every activist stands at a podium. Some change history through quiet acts of courage and sacrifice. Now, another voice that challenged the institution of slavery was Harriet Jacobs. In her autobiography, Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl, Jacobs described the unique horrors enslaved women faced. Subjected to years of sexual harassment and threats against her children, she resisted by hiding in a cramped attic crawl space above her grandmother's room, her home. Now imagine, for 7 years, this woman stayed cramped in a space where she couldn't stand upright, all because she wanted to protect her children and she wanted to protect herself. Now, eventually she did escape to the north. She reunited with her children and she gained her freedom. Through her writing, Jacobs ensured that future generations would understand slavery not as an abstract institution, but as a deeply personal assault on human dignity. The fight for freedom also found a powerful voice in Isabella Baumfree. She's better known as Sojourner Truth. She was born into slavery in 1797. She was a freedom seeker with her infant daughter and later became the first black woman known to successfully challenge a white man in court and recover her son from slavery. As a speaker, abolitionist, and advocate for women's rights, Truth became famous for her speech at the Women's Rights Convention in Akron, Ohio. There, she challenged both racism and sexism by repeatedly asking a question that still resonates today: ain't I a woman? Now, with those words, she demanded recognition of black women's humanity, strength, and equality. Now, we're going to come to our final pamphleteer. His name was Josiah Henson. He was born into slavery in 1789. Henson escaped to Upper Canada, where he established a settlement and school for other freedom seekers. His autobiography became one of the most important first-hand accounts of slavery and is widely believed to have influenced Harriet Beecher Stowe's portrayal of Uncle Tom. Now, although Uncle Tom is the hero of the novel, over time, this character has been misunderstood and labeled as sellout within the community. Now, he was a man who maintained his humanity under brutal conditions. The true warning in the novel is not about Uncle Tom, but about the dangers of surrendering one's conscience and humanity to systems of oppression. The original character was not a coward or a traitor. The true example of submission in the novel is Sambo, a character whose colonized mindset led him to serve only the interests of the enslaver, even to his own detriment. Today, that colonized mindset still exists in various forms. This is why examining the stories of pamphleteers and truth tellers throughout history and even in our own time is so very important. These stories matter because they remind us that pamphleteers, writers, and speakers have always played a critical role in shaping history. They preserve the voices of people whom society tried to silence. And perhaps most importantly, they left future generations a roadmap, a blueprint, not only for surviving oppression, but for overcoming it. So when we read the words of Phyllis Wheatley, Prince Hall, Belinda the African, Frederick Douglass, Anna Murray Douglass, Harriet Jacobs, Sojourner Truth, Josiah Henson, and those that are with us today, we are not simply studying history. We are listening to people who refuse to let others tell their story for them. Their words continue to challenge us today, to educate and inspire us to greatness. Thank you. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions or comments about anything you have heard me say today? No? Well, I thank y'all so very much. This is a very important program that we have going on today. Oh, we do?
Yeah.
Oh, go right ahead.
I know in trying to stick to the time limit, you probably left some folks out. And I was wondering which ones did you have a difficult time leaving out? Or if we're going to add one more person, who would that one more person be?
Oh my goodness, there's so many. There's so many. As a historian, it is so hard for me to just pick and choose one because as we are studying, and like I said, my company is called Hidden Women for a reason. It's because I focus on those who have been hidden in history and you don't hear a lot about them. Oh my goodness, I should have thought about this. Let's see, who would it be? I would mention Harriet Jacobs again because she had a part two to her life and the incidents of a slave girl. She had another book called The Life, and it goes into even more detail. But I would also like to have people study Anna Murray Douglass a little bit more. She does not get the credit that she deserves. And unfortunately, a lot of people think because she was quote unquote uneducated, she was a very intelligent woman. She was a very caring and compassionate woman, and she used her means to make sure everyone that came within her sphere was treated like human beings. And I think it's unfair that she does not get the credit that she should get. Unlike Frederick gets a whole lot of credit, but a lot of the credit that he gets actually belongs to Anna Murray Douglass. So I would like to focus on her. I would say her. Yes, ma'am, Miss Erica.
Just a comment, not a question, but that you brought up Anna, their daughter Rosetta
Yes.
wrote an essay about
Yes.
Anna and her work and her life.
Yes.
And so, yeah, so.
Yeah, I just think we in the public need to do more to bring her story to the fore and not focus on the fact that she couldn't read or write because she did so much more than that. I mean, Belinda the African, she couldn't read or write, but you can read her very words that she spoke to Phyllis Wheatley. I keep wanting to marry these people. Phyllis Wheatley and Prince Hall, she spoke those words to them and they wrote those words for her. And if you go to the Tufts University website, you can see Belinda the African's words and you see her mark where she signed off on those words. And those very words that she spoke is what they are using as the basis of reparation today for descendants of enslaved Africans. So her story is very important, but yet she was not educated by the common system. But her intelligence proved way far beyond to the point that it is helping us today. It is a blueprint for us today. So, yes, ma'am.
Current climate.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe
The ones that I spoke about, I still say Anna Murray Douglas. I still say she's the one. But also Josiah Henson's book is very good as well. Another book that comes to mind, I can't remember the author. It's called The Book of Negroes. There was a movie made about it, but if you can read that book, you can glean a lot of information from that. I would say Anna is still the one because, again, she was hidden. Society wants us to focus only on one or two people in the black community, whereas there was so many more than one or two that did the work. So I would say look for those ones that have been hidden. Bessie Coleman, she was the first internationally licensed pilot. She was 2 years before Amelia Earhart. And she still sets an example for us today that a lot of people don't talk about because of her courage and her convictions to fly a plane in a time when women were not heard, especially black women. They refused to teach her how to fly in this country because she was a black woman. So she had to go to France. And by her going to France to do that, not only did she become a historical figure, she set the bar real high to let people know that black women could do it just as well as anybody else. And even though she passed away 100 years ago, wow, she passed away 100 years ago in April, her legacy is still there. So there's so many lost figures that we don't hear a lot about that we should know about. Elizabeth Mumbet Freeman, how many of you have heard of her? A few of you have. She was the first woman to get her freedom in the formed United States, using the legal system to her benefit. Her document that she used, the language that she used, 82 years later would be used in the Emancipation Proclamation Act. So it carried down and even to this day. And because of what she did, slavery ended in Massachusetts, and then it would eventually follow along 82 years later. So these are people that you don't know about that you should hear about that has made a difference, and their legacy is still there for us to follow the blueprint if we know where to look. Thank you for that. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Well, thank y'all so much for coming to support, not just to hear me, but the whole program today. In this current climate, history, accurate and complete history, is being attacked. And by us showing up to support the programs, it is helping to keep the truth in the forefront. So thank each and every one of y'all for coming out on this beautifully toasty day. Thank y'all.